You sold something at your yard sale to someone else? Choosing beggar and entitled parent crossover. This story is from a few years back, so there is some paraphrasing. But so much of this was so crazy, it stuck clearly in my mind. This is a yard sale story, and yard sales really do bring out the choosing beggars. This is also a crossover, choosing beggar and entitled parents. Cast. We've got me, the person constantly singing the Glade commercial in her head for the last 13 years. We've got choosing beggar, entitled parent. We've got entitled kid. We've got nice kid. And we've got the yard sailor. Setup. I'm having a yard sale. Trying to make some money for textbooks for the upcoming semester. That stuff's expensive. I had a ton of stuff, a lot of variety. For some reason, I had some toys and kid stuff. I'm just a kid at heart. So this was midday. Had a decent turnout so far, doing well. Everything that didn't sell was going to go to Goodwill, so I was open to negotiating. This one woman shows up with her kid, maybe 6 or 7. There are a number of people there, but she comes up and is negotiating every price. Things were already really cheap. She picks up a bunch of clothes. Some are new with tags. Most are really nice name brands and rarely worn, etc. So I have like 3 for $5 on tops. She had this pile of clothes, maybe 10 things, and asks what's the best I can do. This is the conversation that followed. Me. Instead of $15, how about $10? Choosing beggar. I was thinking $8. Me. Sure. She comes back. Since I'm buying so much, can you throw in these jewelry items? How about $1 extra for all of it? 50 cents. Not a question, a demand. Sure. She comes back. These tchotchkes are 4 for $1. Can I get 7 for $1? Sure. She comes back. How much for this penguin toy? There should be a price tag on it. It says $2. Can I give you 50 cents? Sure. I'm just wanting this lady to go at this point, so I'm not fighting her prices. This goes on a few more times. In between all of this, I've been selling things to other people. Her kid had run up to this expandable ball toy. It's like a ball made of plastic pieces that you pull, and it expands to be about the size of a toddler. It's really big, fully expanded. Entitled kid was playing with it for a bit, then he set it down and ran to play with something else. At this point, nice kid comes up and starts playing with it. Nice kid is playing with this ball for 10 minutes while his mom, yard sailor, looks around. The ball had a price tag of $2. For reference, this new toy is currently $35, so $2 wasn't a bad price. Yard sailor comes up to me with 3 clothes items and gives me the money on the tag. No negotiating. She sees nice kid playing with the ball and asks how much it is. She paid full price. She's really nice, and her kid clearly loves the toy, so I just tell her she can have it. She's so appreciative and thankful. Such a nice lady. She tells nice kid that he can have the ball, and he is so happy he's literally jumping. It was really cute. They start walking back to their car. That's when choosing beggar comes running up in a huff, red in the face. What do you think you're doing? I'm sorry? You saw entitled kid pick that up? I was going to give you a quarter for it. It wasn't marked at a quarter, and I'm sorry, but I didn't know you wanted it. He had been playing with it for a while. So you gave it to those people? Yard sailor and nice kid were just at their car, but this lady was yelling so loud and pointing right at them. They knew what was happening. Yard sailor seemed really uncomfortable and scared, and just quickly got nice kid situated so they could get out of this angry situation. I'm also going to point out, yard sailor and nice kid were Hispanic, and yard sailor didn't speak much English. But we were able to understand each other in this limited interaction. Choosing beggar and entitled kid were white. Those people comment was just inappropriate. Choosing beggar was so mad. She had already paid the $11 or so for the armful of stuff, paying as she went. Well, fine. I'm done here then. You lost a customer. She grabs the entitled kid by the arm and drags him to the car. She mumbled to him, "The mean lady sold your toy, so you can't have it." He is bawling and screaming about his toy. I would much rather donate the stuff she bought than sell to her anyway. But hey, I probably lost a whopping 75 cents for $100 worth of stuff. Next we've got, "No, I will not give you a refund for the food your son just took a bite out of." To preface this, I'm from the UK and work in a pastry shop in a relatively small tourist town. I'm a bloke with long hair, dark skin, and a bit of a weird nose, so I don't look like the most British person in the world, and I get some odd questions from customers a lot of the time about where I'm from, despite speaking perfectly regular English. Regardless, it's a fun gig that I'm working in my gap year before I'm off to uni. Most of the people that come in are either regulars that live locally or tourists. In the UK, there's a law that affects our shop and means that for goods that are heated to order, we have to charge an extra 20% VAT. Our goods have no VAT charges otherwise and are made fresh every day. Meaning that while we keep food on an enclosed tray so it's protected, we aren't actually allowed to keep food warm if we want to sell goods without the VAT included. Our pastries are normally warm for about an hour or two after they're baked, and since it's a stupid law that really shouldn't be in place, we normally don't bother charging to reheat products. Along with that, we serve paninis, wraps, and baguettes, with the paninis bread being partially undercooked and cooked whenever a customer orders it in a hot press. Fast forward to January of 2019. It's a busy Thursday afternoon, about 2ish, and the last tray of pastries we baked was about 30 to 40 minutes ago. Supervisor's gone off on his break, and manager's not working on that day, so it's just me working during the lunchtime rush for now. As I said, it's busy, so I give customers the usual, "Hi, how can I help? What can I get for you?" talk, and a quick smile, and try to keep things moving quickly, as I don't want to get too backed up so I can go on my break when my supervisor gets back. Enter entitled Brad, who we shall call EB. He looks to be about 16 to 17-ish, judging by his height and what he looks like. Entitled Brad doesn't say much else other than his order, in which he orders 3 pastries and a panini to go. I give him his pastries and explain that the panini will take 5 minutes to cook properly, upon which Entitled Brad gives me a dumbfounded look. Entitled Brad: "I'm on break from work and only have a few minutes left. Can't you just give it to me as is?" A bit curious as to how Entitled Brad thinks his stomach will deal with undercooked bread, I explain to him that we keep the paninis uncooked so that we can cook them to order, so they're hot and actually, pressed like a panini should be. Entitled Brat huffs and asks for a refund, which under normal circumstances I would be able to do. But thanks to my supervisor being on break and me not having the privileges on the till machine to do refunds, I can't until he gets back, which I explain to Entitled Brat. He grumbles and simply waits for the panini to be cooked, stepping outside and starting to talk on the phone as I'm cooking it. Now, I have other customers at this point, so I quickly serve them. But seeing Entitled Brad on his phone should have been a dead giveaway that it was about to go down. Supervisor gets back from his break, and I call Entitled Brad in to pick up his panini, which he does, but then goes back outside to keep talking on the phone. At this point, Entitled Brad takes out one of the pastries I had served him and takes a bite out of it, then immediately comes back into the shop. "This is cold," he says, waving around the pastry as if I could tell from sight alone. I frown. The pastries at this point were only cooked about 40 minutes ago, as I said, so they shouldn't be that cold, which it isn't. It's about middling in temperature. I begin to say that I can reheat it in the microwave, but as I talk, Entitled Brat interrupts me. "Why are you serving cold pastries?" My supervisor calls over from the back of the shop as he was cleaning near the ovens. It was clear that he was having none of this kid's crap. We'll shorten his name to S. Supervisor: "It's the law, mate. We can't keep things heated or we'd have to charge 20% VAT with every order. Can heat it back up for you though. Entitled Brett scowls at my supervisor. From the general demeanor of this kid, he looked like he wasn't used to being talked back to, which Supervisor was very much doing, and rightfully so. He mumbled something about not wanting a reheated pastry and "I want a warm pastry" before walking back out of the shop in a huff and getting back on his phone. About 5 minutes after this, things have calmed down and my supervisor and I both want to get started on cleaning up the shop. But then in comes none other than Entitled Dad. As I'm polishing the glass on the display cases, I overhear Entitled Dad asking Entitled Brat what was taking so long, to which Entitled Brat states that we had been cooking his panini and refusing to give him a refund so he couldn't make it back in time. Bearing in mind, this idiot chose to stand around talking on the phone to who I can only assume was either Entitled Dad himself or somebody else, instead of getting back to whatever he had been doing. So Entitled Dad and Entitled Brat both storm in at this point, and I can feel my stomach drop. This was the first time I had dealt with customers like this, so in all honesty, I was a bit nervous as I get a bit socially anxious at the best and worst of times. Me. "Hi, can I help you?" I can still see the half-eaten Cornish pastry in Entitled Brat's hand as Entitled Dad starts to speak. Entitled Dad. "Yes, you can. I'd like a bloody refund for the cold pastries you sold this one," he says, referring to the bag of now definitely cold pastries that Entitled Brat had been holding out in the street. The bags we serve them in are made of paper, so they aren't the best at protecting against the wind or retaining heat. Me. "I'm sorry, sir. When I sold him those pastries, they were warm to middling, which is the general temperature that we keep our products. Cue me rambling on about the laws that we have to follow, yada yada. I can, however, reheat them for you if you'd like." Entitled Dad looks shocked that his shop would indeed follow the laws that govern the land, and I watch Entitled Brat scoff. At this point, my supervisor, who had stopped his cleaning to listen to these idiots, comes over. He had been working at the store for about 2 years, and so had dealt with plenty of these types of people. Supervisor. "Sorry, mate, but the best I can do is a reheat. He did take a bite out of the pastry." He points towards Entitled Brat, who scoffs and tries to hide the pastry that he had been waving around previously. Entitled Dad. "Can't you just give us a refund? This is awful customer service." Now, if you know anything about working in retail, the absolute last thing you want to say to the person who is serving you is that you're giving them awful customer service. My supervisor was a particular stickler for this sort of stuff, and he rarely takes crap from anyone, even sending out the typical school kid pranksters if they wind him up for too long. I can see his eye twitch slightly. Supervisor. "No, sir. We are actually giving you great customer service, as normally to heat things up, we'd have to charge the 20% VAT that the law actually requires us to charge. So I can either reheat the product for you now, or you can both leave." Entitled Dad and Entitled Brat were both taken off guard by this and didn't immediately respond. As my supervisor was right, we didn't have to give them a refund, as Entitled Brat had ate half of the pastry that we had sold him, and we were in fact going out of our way to be nice when it came to reheat charges. Then Entitled Brat opens his mouth again, and it hits the fan. He points to me and says, "I don't want anything reheated. I want this weirdo to give me a refund." My supervisor immediately told the Entitled Brat to leave the store and wait outside. He then asked me to wait in the back room behind the ovens, which I did, as I didn't at all want to deal with this stuff. Entitled Dad. "Why can't you just give us the refund? Do you even know the meaning of customer service?" I stood and watched from afar, as the back room is only about 10 feet back behind the counter and has an open doorway leading to it. Supervisor. "I've already told you why. Your kid ate half a pastry, which means that even if I wanted to give a refund, we are not allowed to." Entitled Dad was fuming at this point and looked like he wanted to start a fight. Given my supervisor's short temper, part of me actually worried that he'd rise to it. Entitled Dad. "God, you're a bellend. Fine, heat it back up." My supervisor snapped and immediately interrupted him. Supervisor: "Oh, you know what? No. If you want your food reheated, you can pay the VAT." Entitled Brat started shouting at my supervisor at this, to which my supervisor asked Entitled Brat to, in his words, F off already. Entitled Dad began screeching at supervisor as well. "What the heck? You said it didn't cost anything." Supervisor: "No, I said that heating products up came with a 20% VAT, which we don't normally charge, but since I'm such a bell end, I am charging you it now, as I am required to by law." This argument continues for a few minutes, with Entitled Dad practically talking in circles about how we were offering such utterly garbage customer service despite him and his son being entirely in the wrong. Eventually, he sees that my supervisor isn't going to give in anytime soon and simply takes the bag of pastries and leaves. As a note, later on that afternoon, my supervisor saw Entitled Dad and Entitled Brat again, working at whatever job Entitled Brat was supposedly late to get back on shift for. They are builders, which have a hilariously bad reputation for giving awful customer service around the UK, which made their earlier comments all the more funny to me. And our final story of the day. I gave pocket change for your daughter's Happy Meal. Now you owe me dinner. Hello, Mr. Reddit. I've been listening to your videos for a while now. I'm a delivery driver, and listening to your videos helps get me through the work week. And if you should choose to, you have my full permission to use this in a video. Backstory. My wife was hospitalized due to complications in her second pregnancy, and my mother-in-law came into town and stayed with me to help out with our other child and such since I work full-time. The cast. We've got me. We've got the one and only entitled mother-in-law. We've got the awesome best friend. We've got the waitress and my daughter, only in mentioning. The story. It was finally my day off, and I had been looking for something to go do to de-stress a bit, and we decided to go to the lake. Took my daughter and awesome best friend with me. Entitled mother-in-law wanted to tag along too, so we all headed out together. I knew I needed to get my daughter something to eat before we went out to the lake, since it's an hour-and-a-half drive, and she loves Happy Meals, so you know where I had to go now. I pull up to the drive-thru window. Me. I'd like one chicken nugget Happy Meal, please. Entitled mother-in-law. Get me a large tea and a large fry, too. I tell entitled mother-in-law. I'm not even getting anything for me. Entitled mother-in-law. I'll give you a 5, and you can use the change towards the Happy Meal. I was okay with this, knowing that entitled mother-in-law's meal would be around 4 and change. Awesome best friend gets an ice water. I give them the 5, pay the overage, and we're on our way. We all have a good time down at the lake, but it was starting to get near dinner time and we were hungry. After a little deliberation, we decided on Mexican food. Entitled mother-in-law. Since I helped you pay for the Happy Meal, you owe me this dinner. But if it's over $15, I'll help pitch in. Awesome best friend and I can't figure out how she comes to an I owe her $15 conclusion, but we're all hungry, so instead of arguing, we just go. We get to the restaurant and we're ordering our food. Awesome best friend ordered his food, which he was paying for himself, and I look at the menu and order the cheapest thing on there that I think I'll like. Then it's entitled mother-in-law's turn to order. Entitled mother-in-law tells the waitress, I was at a different Mexican restaurant where they had some sort of a chicken breast with peppers meal, but I don't see it here. Do you guys have it? Waitress. Well, ma'am, it's not on our menu, but we can have a special order for it if you like. Entitled mother-in-law, without any regard for the price. Yes, that would be great. Dinner goes along with normal conversation and everything was going fine. But then the bill came and they gave awesome best friend his bill and then me the one for entitled mother-in-law and myself, and her meal was $25. Before I could say anything, she had excused herself to my car and I had to go and pay the bill and leave the tip. When I get back out to the car, I bring it up to her. Remember how you said if your meal was over 15, you'd pay on it? Well, it was $25. Wow, I wouldn't have guessed it would be that much. So, are you going to give me the money for it? I will get it to you later. As you would guess, I never have seen any of that money and probably never will. New manager makes working stressful. Enjoy working alone with no staff. Hello again, Reddit. I've been reading these stories a lot, and while I did post a story about my great-grandfather a while back, because I recently heard it from my mother and grandmother, a new story that I had almost forgotten about came flooding back to me recently. The main reason I am remembering this is because of a recent phone call that I took in from my current job. This is a long story with some backstory, so bear with me. This story happened over 20 years ago during the late 90s. I was 17 and had just recently gotten a job as a dishwasher at a local summer camp. This was a large camp that was run by a corporation. I won't say the name of the corporation, but there is a very famous song named after them. I had been to this summer camp before as a kid, so I knew the layout of the camp. My job started up the first week of summer, mid-June, so the kids were already there. I had my interview with the acting kitchen manager, who we will call Susan. The original manager had just recently left the company and put Susan in charge. This didn't seem to bother Susan, as she was eyeing for the kitchen manager job that had recently opened. Susan was a sweetheart. She was nice and helped me out with everything. I also interviewed with Bob, the camp director, as Susan did not have any hiring or firing power, as she was just an acting manager. The majority of the kitchen staff were also nice and helpful. I made friends with them during the time I worked there. While there was way more than these people, I remember there being around 10 to 15 kitchen staff members during the summer. I am only going to bring up ones that are important to this story. There was Todd, an older guy who lived only a few blocks from the camp and didn't have a car, so he rode his bike in the morning, who was also a dishwasher. He was my supervisor, but also really nice. Dale, the head cook, had been there for a long time and used to be a cook for the local middle school. Debbie, another cook, Ellie, a kitchen server, later girlfriend, and Boris, a Russian dishwasher who had a sponsorship with the camp as part of their Worldview program. There were 3 other dishwashers, Dumb, Dumber, and Dumbest, who I will call the Dummies, but they are not part of Revenge. Just that there were 3 dishwashers that were the worst. Nobody got along with them, and they couldn't get fired because Susan was acting manager. Now, due to the fact that we were located at a camp, the staff had full access to the facilities of the camp. This means that during my breaks or off work, if the camp was open, I was allowed to go to the swimming pool, go horseback riding, or even boating. As long as I didn't get in the way of the kids, who had a set schedule, it was full access. Susan told me this along with the director of the camp, Bob, during my interview. Bob was also a nice man, but also kind of weird. This is important later on. During the summer, this place was wonderful. I would typically start working the lunch shift, then have an hour lunch break between lunch and dinner. While I was required by state law for a half-hour lunch, Susan gave me an hour, which she did for everyone. Typically, during this hour, I would go swimming or play with the horses. One time, Bob and I went jet boating around the lake, or Ellie and I would make out in the pool. Just typical stuff a teenage boy would do. Most everyone in the kitchen staff loved me, as I was a model employee and helped with just about everything. They loved that they had someone who they could get help with, as the dummies would always mess up. In August, we got the news. The corporation had picked a new kitchen manager, and it was someone from outside of the company. Susan was really upset. She had worked so hard for years for this job, and the higher-ups picked someone outside of the company. The new manager was named Karen. The first time we met Karen, she gave a speech how new changes are coming, and we will now work as a team, and was condescending at Susan's work. The first thing she did was a massive cleanup to the large walk-in fridges. The strange thing was, she didn't have the staff do it, but it was, later on we found out, her family cleaning it out. She also hired her husband, Dan, to be the assistant manager, pretty much forcing Susan out. During this time, the camp was starting to transition from a summer camp to an event camp, so the large staff would be cut in half. This wasn't a problem normally, as people would be leaving for school and other seasonal jobs start opening up. The first people she cut were the dummies. Everyone was happy on that, and that was the only good thing she did. But in the end, all that was left was Ellie, Dale, Todd, Debbie, Boris, a few others, and me. I asked Karen if I could work the weekend, as I had high school, and she agreed since everyone else had wanted to keep me on staff. Karen then begins her terror. It only took a week, but it happened. Her fangs started to show, and the power got to her. Each person felt the wrath of her. She was one of those people who thinks their farts don't smell. She would come in late, leave early, but yell at everyone for doing the same thing. Everyone had problems with her, but here are a few that I remember. Todd was starting to get written warnings about coming in late. Karen placed him on the morning shift, but he told her that he couldn't do the morning shift, or he would be late as he doesn't have a car and bikes into work. As the camp is located in a rural area, it doesn't have streetlights, and biking in the morning is dangerous. This isn't a problem during the summer, as the sun is up earlier, but during the fall and winter time is not acceptable. She called him lazy for not having a car, and it didn't matter. She needed him in here. Dale, the head cook, was starting to get fed up with Karen ordering too little of the food and the wrong food, having cheaper products, and being forced to work with a broken stove. One time, he asked her when the stove would be fixed, and her response was, "Fix it yourself. You are a big boy." So oftentimes, we would run out of food for the night and had to make sandwiches for the people. Ellie got the worst of it. Since we were dating, I found out that she had an eating disorder a few years earlier. She was 2 years older than me and used to be anorexic. Karen kept calling her picky and fat, and how she shouldn't eat all the food in the kitchen. She was upset and crying the whole time when this happened. I confronted Karen about it, and she said, "She shouldn't be a sheltered college brat and should just grow up. And if she has a problem, she should talk to me, not you." I also felt the wrath of her too. She would change my schedule around randomly after posting it. On Friday, we would get our schedules for the week. I typically worked Friday night, Saturday, and Sunday because of high school. During the week, she would change my schedule, so I was working on Friday night. She changed it to Wednesday night and then would call me saying I missed Wednesday night. Unlucky for her, Dale had my number and called me whenever he found a schedule change, but it was getting old quickly. She would also tell me to do a job, then change what to do. For example, one time she told me to clean the oven, and when I was near finishing up on the job, she asks why I didn't clean the stove and would get mad when I said she told me to do the oven. Another example was that she would tell me to mop the floor and Boris would come over and help me out because he had nothing to do, and then get on me for Boris finishing my job, even though Boris spoke up and said that he asked her if he could help me and she said yes. Another example was that she cut my break from an hour to half hour and not allowing me to use the facilities during my break, since I was only on break to eat, not play. After a few weeks of this, late September, I went to Bob about her and told him everything about what she was doing to us. I found out from Bob that Dale also went to him earlier that week with the same thing. However, having the spine of a jellyfish, he said, "I'll talk with Karen." Then a day later, Karen starts getting on us for going to Bob and not her, saying, "If you have a problem with me, you come to me, not Bob." This was the last straw for us, so I talked with the rest of the kitchen staff and we decided that she needed to leave. During one of my breaks that she wasn't in the office that day, when we were still trying to think of a way to get rid of her, I was eating my dinner in her office. The manager's office was the only one with AC in it, and it was a hot day. We all had permission to be in her office as it had the keys to the large fridge, tools, the private restroom, and whatnot. I'm eating dinner with Ellie when Boris comes looking for a pen. He was trying to fill out information so he could go home to Russia. I don't remember what, just that he was planning on leaving in 3 weeks, and sits down at her desk. He is opening up the desk to find a black pen when he finds a check. It was a paycheck to one of the dummies who left a month earlier. It was his final paycheck. Highly illegal to withhold a paycheck. Boris showed us the paycheck, and then he started to look at the computer that was on her desk. While Karen was a jerk, she was also stupid and left everything unlocked. There he saw the orders. She was ordering things that we never got into the kitchen, or ordering extra stuff. It turns out that she was ordering more food than we thought, stealing the food and using it for her own personal use. I told Boris that he was looking through her personal files, and he said, "What are they going to do? Deport me?" We also found out that Bob was getting a kickback from the extra food that Karen was getting in to keep quiet. So it explained why Bob had the spine of a jellyfish towards Karen. Boris printed out the information and held on to it. This is important later on. The 3 of us told Dale about it, and he wanted to confront Karen, but Debbie pointed out that she would just deny it and Bob would cover up. We thought about corporate, but we had no connections to corporate, and Susan had left the company, who used to have the connections. It then hit on us. In about 3 weeks, mid-October, corporate was going to be having a retreat using the camp. All the big wigs and high-ups were going to be there, and we were all scheduled to be at work that day because there was going to be a huge feast for dinner, while lunch corporate was going to have grilled burgers and hot dogs. I remember that corporate brought in an outside vendor for the grilled stuff since they were preparing a big feast. Karen was also going to be there to impress the big wigs. We decided to act on that day, but also knew what to do beforehand. It was also going to be Boris's last day as he was leaving for Russia that night. So on the day of the feast, all of us show up on time at around noon. The dinner feast wasn't going to be until 5 p.m., so we had plenty of time to prepare, or at least, that's what Karen thought. We got there and just sat down around the kitchen and did no work. We locked the freezer with a different lock. It was only locked with a normal deadbolt lock you can get at the hardware store. The janitor wasn't going to be in until later in the evening, thanks to Dale telling him about the plan and not to answer the phone, so he couldn't use his tools to break into the fridge. So we waited. Karen didn't get in until 4 p.m. with her husband. She looked as if she was ready for a major interview when she saw all of us just standing around. The stove wasn't on and cold. The fridge was locked, and we were just sitting around. Karen started to yell and talk about how today is important for her and that she would have our heads for this. So Dale comes up to her and says, "We quit." Karen went full-on deer in headlights, and her mouth was so wide open that you could throw peanuts into it. All of us walked out on her, into our cars, and drove away before she could get a word in. We decided to just quit. After we quit, all of us started to look for jobs. While some had security lined up, since we knew that this was going to happen, but knew that a major shakeup like this would grab the attention of the bigwigs. I found out a month later when I got a call from Susan, the original acting manager before Karen, asking me if I wanted my old job back. It turns out that Karen called Bob and said her whole kitchen staff just left, and they needed to tell the bigwigs that the feast was going to be canceled. She couldn't get into the fridge with all the food since her key didn't work, and nobody was picking up to help her. She tried to call others that left or were fired, but since she was so toxic, nobody wanted to work with her. The bigwigs were not happy. They went right to the kitchen to find out what was wrong and saw that nobody but Bob, Karen, and Dan were there without any food cooking. Boris walks in and Karen starts yelling at him, saying, "How could he do this to her?" Boris then hands the bigwigs the printed information he got from Karen's computer earlier and had made copies of it, gave it to everyone in the room. Boris told me through email that he wasn't sure who was in charge, so he gave everyone in the room the information since he figured one of them had to be a head guy, then got into a taxi and went back to Russia. Corporate started on investigation as soon as that happened. Bob, Karen, and Dan were fired almost right on the spot. And not only did they find out about the withholding checks and backdoor deals with Bob, but also Bob was stealing money from the camp to support a drug habit. Karen and Bob were arrested for fraud and most likely other things. It has been over 20 years. I don't remember everything, but that one stuck out at me. Pretty much the whole camp had a shakeup. Susan took over as the manager, got the job she wanted with a pay raise. She did leave after they gave the job to Karen, but her new job wasn't working out, and about half of the staff came back. I did come back too, during the 2 months I was out of work. My parents were helping me out with bills. They forced me to pay for my own car insurance and gas. My grades were never the best in high school. While this was happening, I came back, but only for a month, since by that point, it was the middle of winter and it was costing me more in gas to get to work than work was paying me. Dale came back to the job along with Debbie, but Ellie and I broke up. It was a summer love anyway, as she moved away for college. Todd never came back and works at a local liquor store. At least last I saw him. I haven't been in that store in about 7 years. So what happened now in my current job that caused me to remember this? Well, I got a call from Dan about a month ago, recently wanting me to do some work for him. However, he lived in another state that we aren't licensed to do work in, and that was pretty much the end of the conversation. I decided to Google search her name, but didn't find much information except some court records about the original case from years ago. Dan and Karen do not appear to have any social media page or anything that I can find. I honestly don't care anymore, as it has been over 20 years since this happened, and I'm much happier at my current job. Edit. Just to be a bit more clear, I'm almost 100% sure that Dan had no clue who I was when he called. I only typically give out my first name on the phone, unless someone asks for my last name. Both Karen and Dan's last name were very unusual and is something I remember from all those years ago due to the unusual name. Next we've got Garage Manager tries to screw over a loyal customer. Customer gets revenge. Garage owner is awesome. Mechanics are notorious for not maintaining their personal daily drivers, but the significant other's car will always be well maintained because you don't want a broken car and an angry wife. Malvo the Volvo may be a little old, but it gets all of its service done at one garage and has for the last 60,000 miles, all on time with the owner's manual. On the last oil change, the cartridge filter cap was tightened too much, fusing the cap to the block with the force of 1,000 gods. The service writer tried to sell me a new cap and repair, has to air chisel the plastic cap off. I laughed and asked to talk to the GM, general manager, or owner. I told the GM that this shop has done all my services for the last 60,000 miles. If this was improperly installed, the fault is on them. Of course, the manager still tried to say it wasn't their fault and refused to fix the problem. This got me mad. I said, "It is obvious that you are not going to make this right," and walked over to the wall with the business license, Bureau of Auto Repair certifications, etc. I started writing all the business information down on the back of the estimate sheet I was given by the service writer so I can contact the owner. While doing this, I told General Manager to get my car out of the bay and give me my keys. The tech had drained the oil, but refilled it to the proper level before letting the vehicle leave the shop. The manager then walks up with my keys and a bill for 15 minutes of shop time and 5 quarts of oil. I looked at him and said, "Really? You want to be like this?" And the general manager replied, "Yeah, I didn't charge the 1 hour minimum, so feel lucky." What a jerk. So Malvo the Volvo and I go to the dealership. I explain what happened at my regular garage and tell the Volvo mechanic to fix it proper, about $400. Now that Malvo is fixed, I get to work. I did some digging and found the owner of the shop's phone number. I explained to the owner that I would have no choice but to bring a lawsuit against the company to reclaim damages and legal fees because the general manager was not willing to fix a problem that was caused by a technician at the shop. After legal fees and costs, this $400 fix could cost the shop thousands in court. The owner cooled me down and was on my side. I meet him for lunch the next day and walk him through what happened. He apologized for the problem, and we went to the garage after lunch. The moment we walked in, the general manager walks up and greets the owner. "Hey boss, how are..." He gets cut off by the owner saying, "I'm not your boss anymore. Go in the office, wait, and I will tell you why." The owner writes me a check for the dealership bill, refunds the repair bill, and hands me a ticket book full of free oil changes, a transmission flush, tire rotations, etc. He says, "I have been in this business in this town for 40 years. I take great pride in my company's reputation and hope you keep doing business with us." I reply, "You got my business for life because you made things right." On the way out, I stop and arrange a service appointment for my other car and can hear the owner ripping in to General Manager. General Manager walks out of the office and as he passes me, mumbles something I couldn't hear. The next time I brought a car in, the service writer told me that the General Manager had to move away from this town because nobody would hire him. Local business owners here talk a lot, and the shop owners let everyone know that General Manager was dishonest to customers and could possibly damage their reputation with his "not my fault" attitude. Edit. I chopped down the story a bit because I didn't want to write a novel. Let me fill some stuff in. I was an automotive tech for almost 10 years, but recently changed to a less physically demanding job. I know my way around a car and keep my old beater alive with duct tape and hope. Malvo the Volvo is maintained by the garage, wife's orders. It ensures that maintenance is done on time and keeps me from sleeping on the couch. I also know my shop liabilities and how the process works to legally recover money from a bad repair job, since I have helped customers with cars that other mechanics have messed up. Motivation for General Manager to not eat the repair was commission pay for services. If the shop messes up, it comes out of the bonus pay. That, and he is a jerk. I admit I was very unprofessional with the owner on the phone. Should have calmed down more before calling. I threatened legal action because if General Manager told me to buzz off, I expected the same from the owner. Owner told me General Manager was a problem employee, but wouldn't go into it, so we already had 2 strikes. The owner met me for lunch because if I caused a scene, it wouldn't be at his shop. That, and around lunch, half the cops in the area are in or near the place. Owner is a smart guy. I have apologized to him a few times already for how I acted. I was mad, but that is no excuse. If anyone in this story is a hero, it's the shop owner. And our final story of the day. Make my life at work miserable? You'll never work with me again. I used to work at a medium-sized IT services company and had recently been moved to a smaller branch office with a nice pay raise. I was basically my own team and got to do interesting work on a large project. Since they were satisfied with the work but needed it done in a larger scale, the company hired another person to help me. Meet Fred. I knew Fred from outside work through common relationships, and I didn't find him any weirder than other nerdy people in the business. Oh boy. Fred was good at technical work. Very good. When it came to human interactions, though, it was something else. Fred thought of me as his only friend in the workplace and would complain all day long about all other colleagues who were equally incompetent, weird, evil, and generally deserving of his scorn. Fred had a terrible tendency of telling other people we had to work with that they were doing things wrong and that their software was crap, which was often technically right, but completely forgetting the constraints in which other people had to work and that there might have been reasons for things that now sounded awful, which is basically always the case in IT. People resented both of us as a team for things he said, and some situations became entrenched. It was getting harder every day for me to get to work. Eventually, he made a lot of enemies, and he got a meeting with the division director. It only lasted for a few minutes, during which he told the boss of 800 people that he was an evildoer. It was his last day in the company. I worked alone from that time and managed to finish most of the project, soothing things over with other teams. A few months later, I got an offer for the job of my dreams in a huge utility company. After starting the work, Guess who I discover working right here as a contractor under my direct supervision? Fred. Fred looked so happy to find a friend again. He spent most of my first day at work telling me how the company was awful, everyone was dumb, and everything was insufferable. I went home that night feeling horrible, wondering how much of what he told me was true and how bad it would be to work there. Turns out, after a few hard starting days, it really was the job of my dreams. Acting now with Fred as a client and not a colleague, I managed to keep him in check and to improve a lot of the perceived quality of the team's work. Prior to my hiring, Fred was basically telling people to buzz off whenever they were asking him things he didn't want to work on. Having someone who could see through his BS to manage him got the roadmap back on track. Eventually, I learned that my colleagues had been very wary about working with me at the beginning because Fred had been bad-mouthing me from the day he learned I had been hired to manage him. This had made the first weeks difficult until they understood he had been lying about it all. About 2 years later, I was now the team manager, and my boss comes in my office and asks me about a hiring issue. There's a new position in the team, and the recruiter asked him about someone with excellent technical skills, but who sounded very arrogant. Guess who wanted to work as my colleague again? If you follow the story, you've got it right. I did not let out to my boss the slightest bit of resentment. I explained to him how he was a very competent person, but that he might just lack a bit of the skills required for our company's teamwork. I knew exactly what I had to say for my boss to never want to hire him, ever, without making it about our personal history. I only told what happened to a close coworker, and he sounded very thankful to hear that he would not have to work with Fred as a colleague. A few months later, his company lost the contract, and Fred was hired by the new contractor. However, they were not as lenient with him as the previous company was, and another few months later, I was finally Fred free. Last I heard of him, he was working at a Silicon Valley giant on a project that was in a worldwide media crapstorm over technical issues. I keep wondering whether he was telling everyone else in his team how bad at their job they were and how much he contributed to that massive failure. Mom freaks out after I tell her I, an intern living by myself, can't really afford to buy gourmet cat food every month for her. Some background info and drama for y'all. My mother has been, at least for as long as I've been alive, on a cycle of employment and unemployment, and she kind of believes no job is good enough for her, so she's always quitting. I have referred to her as a narcissist for therapists, and they have agreed, but it doesn't feel really appropriate to stick a personality disorder label to her like that. Anyway, this on-off employment status has created a really rough and unstable childhood for me, financially. However, as far as I remember, I was a pretty happy kid, with some issues of course, but happy. My mom was basically my hero. As I grew older, however, I learned how money is earned, how much things cost, and the like. The comfy bubble my mom had created eventually burst. Mom always tried to maintain a very high standard of living, despite her frequent unemployment status, and she's been successful for the most part by borrowing money from relatives. Then, eventually, from me when I was old enough to work, because she can't even have a credit card or take a loan because she owes a fortune to the banks. Borrowing, because she usually never gives the money back, of course. So, about high standards of living. She always wanted the best stuff, and she thinks expensive is better. So yeah, always the most expensive soap, toothpaste, shampoo, toilet paper, food products in general, rent, etc. She has 2 cats, and recently she got a job. Last year, it lasted 6 months, and asked for me to use my credit card to buy cat food for her, since she has no credit. So, the pet food she buys for the cats is approximately $50. I don't know about other countries, but where I live, Latin America, that's really expensive. It's some gourmet cat food, organic, even has blueberries in it. But okay, she had a job, and I never complained. She paid me back and things were fine. As for myself, I'm a grad student, control engineering major, 22, living by myself, and currently on an internship on a pretty big company, which pays me almost $350 a month. That's a little more than average for engineering internships, but I still don't lead a super comfortable life as the cost of living in my city is unusually high. Rent is about $200. I live on a rented bedroom located on a shady neighborhood and eat frozen lasagna every day. So yeah. I started working when I was 16 in order to try and pay rent and all of that expensive stuff for my mom when we used to live together, since she would rarely be employed. And when I suggested her to take simpler jobs, such as cleaning, cashier jobs, maybe fast food, she would go absolutely nuts, scream at me, and verbally abuse me in the worst ways possible. So yeah, I've given up on that. She will only take roles such as manager. Well, high status jobs, you know? She thinks other jobs are for people beneath her and humiliating. I still remember when I got my first paycheck and we basically had nothing to eat at home other than instant ramen. So I withdrew all my money and told her, let's buy groceries. She bought Nutella, a huge bucket of ice cream, and a box of chocolates, then took me to McDonald's. That made me realize she had a really poor sense of priorities. After turning 20, I decided that was too much for me, that I deserved better. So I moved out. Mom, for the most part, was supportive, you know, as much as she could. I could eventually sense she was really bitter about losing her cash cow. That was 2 years ago. A year ago, she decided to leave this city because she couldn't find a job and go live closer to her relatives. Again, there are jobs here, just not the ones she wanted. When she moved, she immediately got a job my uncle arranged for her. That was her last job, the one which lasted 6 months. Currently, she is not paying rent because she is living in an apartment my uncle owns, and she is probably living off some other uncle or aunt's money because she definitely has no savings, never had. She doesn't have any possessions she could sell either. Very tough situation, and I've always been really worried about her. But I've been going to therapy, and I'm trying to detach myself from this reality that causes me so much suffering and focus on my own life, because I have a lot on my plate already. I'm a student, and I barely make enough to live. Dude. Also, I really doubt the food lasts 3 months. It's 7 kilograms. For 2 cats, that means about 40 grams a day for each. So, what? That's starvation, dude. Now, I wonder if she's starving the cats in order not to lower her standards. I'm still a little shaken because even though I did nothing wrong, it feels bad to read stuff like that from your own mom. She really feels entitled to a lot of stuff. I feel bad for her, living like that. The worst part is knowing she'll never change. Edit. I've seen some recurring questions and would like to address them. Mom does refer to the cats as being brought home by me. Well, I told her I really wanted to adopt a kitty when I was 12. We looked at adoption ads and got our first kitty then. 3 months later, we adopted another one. She was the one who signed the adoption papers. I understand that I have some moral responsibility for bringing it up on the first place, but, well, I was 12. She was the one who made the decision. Anyway, when she moved out of town, I paid 2 airplane tickets for the cats. Yeah, when you take your pets with you on an airplane, you kinda have to pay for an airplane ticket for them, plus some other stuff. She kinda freaked out about the possibility of being separated from them and hinted at possibly ending her life if they didn't come with her. Since my mom is kinda crazy, I took it seriously. I don't mind helping with their expenses, I just wish I could choose stuff that fits my budget. But apparently, for mom, that's too much to ask for. When I first made this post, I had no idea of the price of rent around the world and how crazy different it can be. I legit thought that by converting my currency to US dollars, it would be fine and everyone would understand. I've seen some people saying they pay $2,000 a month. What the heck? Well, turns out You have to consider wages, purchasing power, etc. Next, we've got entitled guy claims to work at my bar, ends up getting tased. Backstory. I used to be a bouncer in a small town, Midwest bar for about 4 years, and while I have a wealth of entitled jerk stories, this one is my favorite. Cast. We've got the door guy, me. We've got the huge guy. We've got big fella's girlfriend, and we've got DJ, the drunk jerk, star of the show. Let's begin. So it was a pretty smooth Thursday night. Not too busy, not too slow. I'm working the door and clearing empties from nearby tables when this mountain of a man comes up to me with a woman about half his size in tow. Enter huge guy and big fella's girlfriend, and in a booming voice, huge guy says, "Hey, door guy, we got a problem." Me, thinking, well, this can't be good. "Yeah, what's up?" His girlfriend, "There's this guy over there, and well, he came up to our table, and at first he was nice, so we were talking and stuff, but now he's getting pretty creepy and started grabbing me." Huge guy, "I made it clear he needs to stop, but now he's doing the same thing to another table," and points across the bar. I look to where he's pointing and see a man who is easily in his late 40s at a table with 3 women who are half his age, his arm around one, and all 3 looking very uncomfortable. Seeing this, I decide it's definitely time to go on the clock and get involved. Huge guy and his girlfriend are regulars, so I ask them to watch the door for me, and I make my way over to the table just in time to catch DJ saying something too inappropriate to post here. Let's just say he was talking about a party that none of the women looked interested in going to. And this is where the story begins. I stop about 5 feet from the table and say, "Hey man, I need to talk to you quick. Come here." DJ, looking very annoyed, gets up from the table and walks up to me, and you can see the relief wash over the poor girls. DJ,
"What? Can't you see I'm busy?"
Me, "Well, man, you're making a lot of people uncomfortable. I'm gonna need you to find your own table and leave folks alone."
"That's bull. Do you know who I am?"
Me, thinking, well, this is gonna end well. "Not a clue, but you can either leave them alone or you're leaving. Those are the options."
"You can't kick me out. I'm the gambling manager of this bar. If you bug me again, I'll get you fired. I know John."
3 things you should know. Bar is allowed to sell pull tabs as long as the proceeds go to charity. 2. There's 9 employees. We were a tight-knit group who regularly hung out, and he wasn't one of them. And 3. The bar was called John's Place. Not real name. John is the owner's dog. Back to the story. Me, "I don't really care who you are. Those are the options. You choose, or I'll choose for you."
"Forget you. I'll leave when I want."
Me, still calm. "That's not how this works. Out, now." DJ, while jabbing a sausage finger into my chest.
"You're flipping fired, jerk. I'm not going anywhere. I'm a manager. You can't kick me out."
Me, getting pretty fed up. "Dude, don't touch me. You can either walk out or I can carry you out. Your choice."
"If you touch me again, I'm gonna ruin your—"
At this time, my patience pretty much ran out, so I cut him off by putting him in a headlock and dragging him out the door and placing him firmly on the sidewalk and going back to my post. You'd think this is where the story ends, but oh no, entitlement was strong with this one. 10 minutes go by, and who do I see sneaking into the bar? That's right, DJ. At this point, DJ is trespassing, so I pull out my phone and call the cops, give them a quick rundown, and then I go and grab DJ again, who had already latched onto another woman, and dragged him outside to wait for the cops. While outside, DJ is throwing a temper tantrum that would put any toddler to shame. Cops arrived in about 2 minutes, small town. DJ, seeing the cops, decides to pull out his phone and starts filming, like he's the victim here. So the cop comes to me, and I tell him what was up and that he was removed before and came back, and that I needed a no trespass order, essentially banning him from the bar, and if he ever came back, he would get arrested. So cop steps up and tells DJ what's going on and that he needs to leave. DJ still refuses, so the cop begins to do his job. Cop:
Sir, can I see your ID? No! I didn't do anything. I'm the gambling manager.
Cop:
Is he?
Me: Nope. Cop takes a deep breath and asks again.
Sir, give me your ID.
DJ, now shoving the camera in the cop's face while talking in a condescending voice.
Am I being detained?
Cop leans directly into the camera.
Yes.
Now DJ somehow is in total surprise.
For what?
Cop:
Trespassing
and drunk and disorderly.
I'm not trespassing. He's lying. He attacked me. Arrest him.
Sir, you were told to leave, and you're still on their property. That's trespassing. DJ, looking down, realizes he's still on the bar's patio and takes a quick step out of the gate. DJ smugly:
Not anymore. Now you can't arrest me.
All while still filming. By this time, a few more cops showed up, and they are clearly done with the situation, and out comes the cuffs. At this point, DJ decides to go for broke and starts trying to fight the cops, all while screaming about how important he is and how he's going to get them fired too. I will say he put up a decent fight for about 5 seconds. Then I heard it. The pop! Tick, 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 tick. DJ rode the lightning and went down like a sack of potatoes. Cops slammed the cuffs on him and off he goes. I go back to my post and have a good laugh and finish the night. It turns out DJ worked for the pull tab company as a delivery boy, and it was against company policy to drink at any of their customers' establishments. He also, thanks to his own cell phone video, got charged with assaulting a police officer. As for me, after a milk bone and some belly rubs, John decided to let me keep my job. He's the goodest boy. Next we've got Entitled Dad Shamed by Restaurant Hostess. So this happened a few years ago, but reading others' stories got me thinking about the entitled parents I've come across over the years, and there's been a few. I lived and worked in a ritzy beach tourist town most of my life, made up of people who work there and people who vacation there. The tourists were basically all entitled parents, but this one is by far the most stubborn I encountered, but had the most satisfied feeling when he walked away. Backstory: one of the summers I was hostessing at a rather pricey and popular restaurant, the kind of place that you need a reservation for, especially on weekends. This night I was working with 2 of the owners and the manager. Our cast: we've got owner 1, an elderly woman who just likes greeting her guests, and we've got owner 2, we've got manager, we've got the hostess, me, we've got entitled dad, an older but not elderly man, and we've got embarrassed adult daughter. So here we go. It's a Saturday night at the height of the season, about 6 p.m. So just about to get hit with our non-stop, completely full reservation block over the next few hours. We don't have any tables available for walk-ins. The only tables that are empty are reserved for their upcoming reservations. So I'm at the hostess station in front with owner 1 and manager. In walks entitled dad and embarrassed daughter. Manager: Welcome to our restaurant. What was the name of your reservation? Entitled dad: We don't have one. Manager: Oh, I'm sorry, sir. Unfortunately, we are completely booked tonight. The next open table won't be available for about 2.5 hours. Entitled dad scoffs: What do you mean you don't have a table? I count 10 empty ones right in there. Manager smiles understandingly: Sir, those tables are reserved. The guests will be showing up soon. Well, how soon? We can eat quick. That won't be possible. I'm sorry, sir. Embarrassed daughter: Dad, it's fine. I thought this might happen. We should have called. We will next time. Let's go to another restaurant.
No, this is ridiculous. They're BSing me. I want to talk to the owner.
At this point, Owner 1 went to get Owner 2. Owner 1 would rather not deal with this nonsense. No one can blame her. She's paid her dues. So Owner 2 comes out. Owner 2. Hi there. What seems to be the problem here?
This man keeps telling me he doesn't have any tables available for 2 hours. That's crazy. I see empty tables.
Most annoying line to a hostess. Owner 2. Let me look at the reservations and tables here. Manager and I both try not to snicker. Owner 2 is a back-of-the-house manager. He doesn't know much about seating charts, but he's appeasing the man. I'm sorry, sir. Looks like the next table won't be available for another 2.5 hours.
Fine. If that's really the case, then we'll wait. I'll stand right here the whole time. I know it won't be 2 hours.
Embarrassed daughter. Come on, can we please go somewhere else?
No, I'm proving a point. They won't fill up like they claim they will.
Embarrassed daughter, exasperated. Fine, Dad, you stay. I'm leaving. As she left, he was a little shocked, but not enough to follow her. So we took his name, and he proceeded to stand in our small entryway as people poured in. We were full within 20 minutes. But this stubborn, entitled dad held his ground. He was going to stay, wait, and glare at us. He kept mumbling to himself, and every now and then you'd hear, "Make my point." We turned countless other families away in that time, and every single one understood. Behind the scenes, Owner 2 and manager were stressing that if and when he eventually got a table, he was going to get worse just out of spite. So they were trying to think of ways to get him to leave without outright throwing him out for no reason. After about 90 minutes, manager was sick of this guy's presence and went back to talk to Owner 2 again. Our next reservation wouldn't be for another 20 minutes. I was at the stand now. Entitled Dad walked up to me. I guess he thought going after the manager and owner didn't work, so maybe he could guilt the ditzy hostess.
How much longer?
Me, giving my best customer service smile. Only about 30 minutes, sir. Entitled Dad snorts and rolls his eyes.
Sure.
That got me. I couldn't hold it in any longer. I had a lot of feelings about what he was doing, but not ones he was expecting. So in my sweetest voice, Sir, that woman you came in with, she was your daughter? Entitled Dad proudly.
Yes, she is.
I dropped my smile and purposely let myself look confused and upset. In all honesty, I genuinely was. I'm sorry, sir. It's just, I lost my dad when I was a little girl. I would have loved the chance to have a father-daughter dinner with him. To see you just throw that away to prove a point is heartbreaking. I can't imagine how your daughter must feel. You guys, this shook him. I wasn't expecting that. He didn't say anything, just looked ashamed, stood there for a minute, then turned around and walked out. My eyes literally went wide as I turned to look at Owner 1, who was giving the same look. I thought I was in trouble for a second, but then she started laughing and told me, "That's how you do it. That's how you put them in their place. Manager and Owner 2 should have seen that." It was incredibly satisfying, and even though we didn't get one for his awful behavior, I hope he apologized to his daughter. And our final story of the day, entitled Father Almost Attacked Me Over a Shirt. I'm 26 now, and I still remember this vividly. Also, this is my first post ever, so please correct any mistakes. Obligatory, I'm on mobile, etc., etc. Our cast. We've got Entitled Dad, we've got me, Mega Man's earlobe, and we've got embarrassed kids. They didn't say anything, just looked sorry for how their father acted. One time I worked at a retail store that had a lot of merchandise and various knickknacks. Next to the store was a tea shop, and on the other side was a stuffed animal store. I worked at this place for a few years, and I absolutely loved my job. Oh, I was very cordial with all the guests and all the customers, and I did everything to the best of my ability. Now, there was one moment that I will never forget because it was the scariest moment of my entire life. Scarier than the time I went on a roller coaster for the first time. Scarier than all the times I've walked in the dark by myself because I'm terrified of the dark. This was a terrifying time. Now, I had just gotten the money into my till because I was working swing shift. We were just now changing cashiers. This plays an important part in this story. Now, be aware this was in 2014, so I do not remember everything word for word. I will do my best to be as accurate as possible. The entitled father came to my register. Me. Hello, sir. If you give me 1 second, I will be right with you. Entitled dad.
No, I'm not going to wait. They told me the same thing over at the other registers.
I'm sorry, sir, but we just started to change shifts, and it takes us a minute to get everything set up.
I don't care. This is what the other people told me, and I'm tired of it.
I'm sorry. I will hurry as fast as I can. I hurried to get the change out while my hands were shaking. Meanwhile, entitled dad kept yelling.
Do you know that the average man is a 2X to 3XL, and you have none in stock? How are you not going to have the most common size in stock?
Now I know for certain the average man is not a 2X or a 3X, but that's besides the point. I thought to myself, if it was a common shirt size, why in the heck does it shock you that it's sold out? I did not say this out loud, but boy, was I yelling it in my head. I apologized to him and asked if I could call a different store in the area to see if they had any shirts in that size. Now, they of course didn't want to do this. It was a hot day, and he was rather cheesed. Now, he bought whatever items he was getting for his kids, who looked positively embarrassed by this. They could have been no older than 12 and 10. Now, when we were taught to count money, it was always told that we have to count it 4 times to make sure that it's correct. We counted twice to ourselves out loud, and then we counted twice in front of the guests to make sure they know that it was the correct amount of change. Most people were okay with this and had no problems whatsoever because they knew I was just doing my job. This entitled individual, this entitled father, didn't care one bit. Now, usually I have a little bit of banter between me and the customer or the guest that's in my queue, and usually they joke around and they playfully say, "Hurry up and count the money. You know I need to get out of here." But it was a complete joke, and they wanted me to do my job to the best of my abilities. The entitled father in this story had that same banter about him. I was looking down, trying to count his money to the best of my ability, and he said, "Hurry up." And I laughed and said, "Okay, sir, just give me 1 second."
No, I'm serious. Hurry up and give me my change now.
I looked up at his face. He was wearing black sunglasses and a Hawaiian print swimsuit, and he said, "I'm serious." He squared up in front of me as if he was going to tackle me. If it wasn't for the desk in between me, I would have been in serious trouble. Now, I'm not a small dude. I'm a fairly large individual. But this man was also a good size, and I also didn't like confrontation. His kids looked positively mortified at their father's behavior. They looked like they wanted to be anywhere but here. The kids gave me a look as if to say, "I'm sorry for this," and meanwhile, I'm trying hard not to cry. This man got his change and walked off. I immediately called security and told them what happened because I felt threatened. I was crying and I was upset, and my manager told me to go to the back office and cool off. Actually told me to go to an outside bench that sat next to a security station/police station that was in the area for that particular place. I knew all of the security guards and all of the police officers, and they knew I was a very good employee and I was a very kind person. It made them so mad that this happened. I was trying to calm down, and I was having a panic attack. I forget whether or not they sent me to the place's medical facility. All I know from that experience was that was the first time I had ever been threatened and almost attacked from anyone that wasn't my family, because brothers fight all the time. Being mortified, the security calmed me down. My supervisors calmed me down, and I was, I believe, able to go home early. They at least gave me the option too. I'm not sure if I took it. The security guards asked me about what the man looked like, and I told them. I gave them as detailed of a description as I possibly could, and they went to look for him. I'm not sure what happened to the entitled father, but it was something that I will never forget. I never want that type of interaction with a person again. I'm a very friendly and very outgoing person, and I try my best to make people feel comfortable when they're around me. My only problem is if that man is acting like this to an adult, imagine how he treats his kids. Those kids were more mature than he was, and that, at the end of the day, is what's really sad. I want to say it's been several years, and I'm able to laugh at this now. It's still something that I will never forget, but at the same time, it's rather funny that this man got all worked up over a stupid t-shirt that he could have gotten anywhere else in the area. Entitled mom yells at me for beating her kid in a football game. I've mentioned this particular entitled kid in other posts on r/entitledkids because he was at the same school as me for 4 years and in almost every class of mine. However, I only encountered his mother a few times, and those few times sucked. Didn't really matter, but his dad was quite nice, so I don't know how entitled kid turned out the way he did. The first time I dealt with his mother was a few years ago, so memory is a bit blurry. Apologies up front. Just to make it easier for you guys to read, I'll give everyone fake names. Our cast. We've got entitled mother, Karen. We've got entitled kid, Ben. Me, OP, just so I don't have to refer to myself as me anymore. We've got friend 1, Anna. She only intervenes a few times. And we've got friend 2, Jake. For context, it was last period that day and I had PE, physical education. Sadly, Ben was in that class also, which gave him more opportunities to be a jerk than normal because our teacher couldn't always keep an eye on him. My PE teacher was being nice and just let us have a relaxed game of football for our last lesson. He split the class in half and set a match between us. Ben was on the opposite team, and so was Anna, while me and Jake were on the other. Long story short, my team beat Ben's by 1 goal. I don't want to elaborate, but he was a goalkeeper, and instead of watching the ball, he kept making comments to his teammates and dragging them down. He was annoying all of them and insulting them, so it wasn't exactly hard for me to shoot the last goal in. I'm a girl, and I play football regularly. Or I used to, and so did Ben. Thing is, he had practice at other places while I just stayed with my school's football team, so in reality, we've only played with or against each other during school time in PE. He was really frustrated when he realized the game was over and that my team won. He didn't say anything to me, only glared into my soul until we left the pitch and went inside to get changed because we had PE uniforms. After that went down, I was walking out of school with Anna and Jake, and we just spot Ben whining to a lady that I assumed was his mom. He looked like a 5-year-old because of the way he puffed his cheeks in agitation and how he folded his arms grumpily. His mother, Karen, was listening very intently, and at some points, he points at us and her eyes shoot upwards to find us. Man, I have never seen the devil incarnate like I did that day. She comes stomping over to us with your typical Karen haircut and sunglasses on top, seeming more annoyed than her kid.
Excuse me?
Can I help you, ma'am? I was pretty respectful for my age because my parents wouldn't deal with me otherwise. However, that didn't stop her from throwing her storm onto us.
My child,
Points at Ben, who was still where he was 5 minutes ago.
told me you cheated in a game of football he took part in, and that's why you won.
I didn't really know how the heck I should respond to that. Ma'am, it's not like I picked the ball up and ran across the field with it in my arms. I wouldn't have any fun while playing if I did any sort of cheating. Her face turns bright red, but she's an entitled mother, and I'll be darned if they don't always have something to say back.
Don't lie to me. Kids these days are so disrespectful. You're just saying you didn't cheat to get out of the consequences.
At this point, Jake joins in. Jake. Actually, I was on her team, and she played by the rules. Our PE teacher was watching the whole game, so she would have been pulled out or something if she did anything like that. Ben comes over with his attitude stroll and nose up high. Karen
That doesn't prove anything.
turns to Ben.
Is this the girl that cheated, sweetie?
Ben nods.
Yeah, when our teacher wasn't looking. It's not fair when I was trying so hard.
Anna, you were in the goal, screaming at your teammates because they were mentally impaired. Karen's eagle-like eyes immediately went to her.
Don't talk back to us. So disrespectful. Where are your parents?
We usually walk home alone because we lived in a small town and our school was 5 minutes away from our homes, maybe less. At work. Karen.
What? How can your parents allow you children to go around town unsupervised?
Jake. Just leave us alone. Out of all of us, he's usually the rudest to people like entitled moms.
No, you will listen to me, young man. I am an adult.
Turns to me.
And you should apologize to Ben for cheating. If you don't want me to involve the school district or your parents,
You want me to apologize?
it's the right thing to do.
No, I didn't do anything wrong. She started screaming all over again, but I was done with the conversation and just walked away with my friends. We thought she would come after us, but she didn't, and just stayed there and yelled. I saw her a few more times after that event, unfortunately. The next week, every day Ben was giving me all the death stares and I've ignored him. Anna eventually told me the reason he was so upset. It wasn't just because he lost. Before the game started, Ben was talking to his friends. He doesn't really have any friends because no one can stand him. And Anna overheard their conversation. I knew one of the boys that Ben hanged out with pretty well, and he was on the school's team as well, so he knew I was quite good at playing. He made a comment saying something like, OP is good, quite good. We should step our game up if we want to win since they have her. After a few others agreed, Ben said something along the lines of, because I didn't actually hear it and Anna just told me everything.
OP isn't that good. She doesn't work well with others and is constantly tripping over her feet. And besides, she's a girl. Girls aren't as good at football as guys.
So the others made a bet with him that meant if my team won, he would have to give them 5 lei, 1.5 pounds. It's a lot more expensive in Romania, which is where I lived, and vice versa. He agreed. After I won the match, he had to give his money to his friends and was laughed at for the rest of the week. He was pretty mad because of that. I found it hilarious, to be honest, and even though it wasn't that big of a deal for me that I won that game, because it was just a normal game, not the nationals or anything, a few kids came up to me and congratulated me for winning and for setting Ben in the right. Again, no one was really his #1 fan. I didn't hear anything from the school district about Karen, so I don't know if she actually went and complained. That's the first time I met an entitled mom. I was used to entitled kids, but I didn't know adults were in on this as well. I was uncomfortable during the whole thing. Thanks for reading, guys. Next we've got more money than brains. You don't want to save 4,000 pounds because you'll have to spend 2 pounds? Hey, Army. Don't really know where to put this story because I still can't get my head around the stupidity of this guy. Backstory. I was working for a multimedia company doing customer service for phone, TV, and broadband. Part of my job is to recommend a better service to customers to help save customers money. Here's where our story begins. Cast. We've got me, the great and powerful Oz. We've got dumb customer. Call comes in. Hello, my name is Me. How can I help you? Dumb customer.
Yes, I'd like to pay my phone bill.
Okay, let me check. I always check the customer's bill first before I do anything else. Oh my god, this has to be a mistake.
What's the problem?
It says here that your bill is over 4,000 pounds.
That's right, same as last time.
He says this so casually, like he was commenting on the weather. Sure enough, his bills for the last 6 months were the same or even higher. I had to find out why. He did have other services, such as the broadband and TV, but they were standard charges. Me. Do you mind if I take a look at your call log to see if I can get your bill down for the next month?
Okay, but it's really not a problem.
When I check the call logs, I see dozens of calls to Dubai, all over 2 hours long, charged at the premium rate. Okay, what I'm seeing here is a lot of international calls lasting well over an hour. So you're being charged at full rate after the first hour expired. But even then, it shouldn't be this high when you have international number features applied.
No, I don't have any of those. They're just a waste of money.
No, sir. If you had the international call on your phone plan, it would have saved you thousands.
But my bill would go up if I did that.
Talking about his basic bill of his service, which was about £40, adding the international call plan would only be an extra £2. I spent the next half hour trying to convince this numbskull that £2 was less than £4,000. Sir, if you add the international call plan and keep your calls under an hour, your international calls would be greatly reduced to the same price as a local call.
But I'll still have to pay £2 more on my bill. I really can't afford to pay extra for this.
Listening in sheer disbelief at how stupid this statement was, I persisted. Just so I get this right, you would rather pay £4,000 per month for your phone bill instead of paying £42 per month for all your services?
That's right. The international call plan just costs too much. It's cheaper to be without it.
I'm not joking. He really said that. His argument was that he didn't call Dubai very often, so it was an unnecessary expense, despite the fact that he called Dubai 3 times a month in the last 6 months. Even when I tell him this, he still won't accept it. Some people have more money than brains. Edit. This guy was in his teens and calling his mother. He was also a student in the UK and Dubai native. So this wasn't a business phone line. They were charged at a different rate. And our final story of the day. Karen upgrades herself from hideous troll. Hello, Mr. Reddit and Re-Army. I would like to share a story with you of my adventure at the local Wally World. So I am doing my grocery shopping, minding my own business, and someone taps me on my shoulder. Hard. While I was wearing a black t-shirt and black cargo pants at a Wally World, I was missing the cheerful blue or yellow vest. Given my lack of said vest and a name tag, I thought most people would be smart enough to realize I was not a store employee. Apparently, I was wrong. Anyway, I turn and here is a woman, 5'0", at least 200 pounds, with the "Get me your manager" haircut. Karen.
Where are the spices?
Heck if I know. They've moved them around.
You work here. You should know where they are. And drop the snotty tone, you little jerk, or I'll get you fired.
I'm just a customer, lady. Find a staffer to help you, okay? And I turn back to my cart.
Fine. I tried to ask nicely, but you fat Wally World slobs don't know how to treat your betters. Give me your manager.
So I turn back to this woman. Listen, you hideous troll. I do not work here. Buzz off. She sputtered for a minute, stormed off, and left her cart. I went back to my shopping. 10 minutes and 3 aisles later, here she comes again, with a duty manager in tow.
There he is. That's the obnoxious lard butt that called me an ugly woman of ill virtue. I want him fired.
Me. Actually, lady, I called you a hideous troll. Manager.
He doesn't work here, ma'am.
At this point, dear Karen did the most amazing impression of a nuclear reactor in full meltdown. She started screaming at the manager, cussing and yelling and throwing a tantrum that would make my 6-year-old son think someone was carrying on a bit too much. She even started hyperventilating toward the end of it. That was when the manager finally had enough of a break to clearly say,
You should leave, ma'am, and don't come back to this store.
I don't know what happened to her after that, but the manager was very apologetic to me for having to endure such vitriol, and I commiserated with him given my 20+ years in the customer service industry. Entitled Mother throws a fit over a chess game. Cast of our story. We've got Entitled Mom. We've got Entitled Kid, aka Poor Sport. We've got me, aka Friend's Friend and Helper. We've got my friend, aka Chessmaster 3000. Okay, he might not be that good, but he's good. And we've got the game admin. For chess tournament, I don't know what else to call him. Tournament rules, important. No talking, only whispering. No cheating, duh. Listen to staff, duh. Write down your moves in your notebook. There was a lot more, but this is more of a simplified version. With that junk out of the way, let us begin our story. So me and Friend are at a chess tournament at a hotel. Today was day 1, and Friend won all of his games leading up to game 3. We walked down to the lobby, checked the rankings, and lined up at the door. We waited until the doors were open. Once they did, me, Friend, and everyone else ushered into the room. Friend got to our assigned seats, and I decided to help set up the board, the pieces, etc. Enter Entitled Kid and Entitled Mom. Entitled Kid has a big, I'm gonna crush you into the ground grin, and Entitled Mom is your basic Karen, but fat with brown hair. Friend decides to introduce himself like he usually does. Friend. Hi, I'm Friend, and you are? Entitled Kid.
I'm Entitled Kid. Let's get this over with, please.
Oh, okay. Entitled Mom.
Yeah, this shouldn't take too long.
Huh? This is a chess tournament. You guys have been here all day.
Yeah, well, Entitled Kid has won all his matches so far, and nothing's going to stop him.
Alrighty. Best of luck to your son then. Friend turns to me and rolls his eyes. I chuckle and finish setting the board. Soon, game admin announced that round 3 will start soon. We take our places. Me and Entitled Mom sit on the side and watch the game unfold. Entitled Kid was a pawn grabber and took pawns wherever he could, which is a very bad strategy. So Friend used this to his advantage and dragged the game out as long as he could, but eventually defeated Entitled Kid. Entitled Kid was shocked that he actually lost, and then got mad. They both started whispering.
How did you win?
Easy. You kept going for pawns, so I used it to my advantage.
How did you know I like to grab pawns? It sounds like you are stalking me.
What? No, it's just reading your moves and tactics. Entitled Mom then chimes in, and she gives 0 darns to the no talking rule.
Entitled Kid, did he cheat? We can call game admin over.
Me. No, he didn't. He was just reading his moves.
Reading his moves? What does that mean?
Friend. Just watching his playstyle.
So, you were watching him?
Yes.
So you were stalking my kid?
Huh?
Are you stalking my kid? You told me you were watching him.
Me. No, he was watching his playstyle.
No, you guys were stalking him before this. In fact, you both kept walking around near others.
Friend. That's because we finished the games early and look at other games. Game admin comes over to address Entitled Mom's loud behavior. Game admin.
Ma'am, why are you being so loud?
I'm asking these kids
Note, we are both 15.
if they cheated or not.
Game admin.
Okay. Here, let me see your notebook. You too, Entitled Kid.
Both hand their notes in, and game admin checks them over. Everything lines up, and game admin hands the notebooks back. Admin.
There doesn't seem to be any signs of cheating.
But if you want to make a complaint, then talk to me in about 15 minutes when everyone else is done.
No, I swear they cheated. They stalked him.
What? Me. My friend just read Entitled Kid's moves. He was being a pawn grabber.
Oh.
Anyways, I want them kicked out for stalking my kid.
Game admin.
Ma'am, he was just reading the moves on the board. It's a very common thing in chess.
Entitled mom, looking at me and my friend.
Whatever. We're going to talk about this in private.
My friend.
Okay.
We clean up very fast and head into the hallway.
Okay, don't listen to the game admin. You guys cheated and therefore lost the match. Be sure to add a loss in your rankings.
Friend.
Okay. Are you now trying to say that we cheated? Because if so, you are actually dumb.
Don't be so rude. Wow, kids these days.
Whatever. We're listening to the game admin and going to mark it as a win.
No, you guys lost.
Sorry. OP, let's go.
We start to walk to the ranking board, but Entitled Mom is right on our heels following this. Friend.
Why are you following us?
I'm trying to tell you that you cheated, and you keep running away from me.
I already said that I don't care. Get lost.
Forget you then, jerk.
Whoa, you better shut your mouth. It's hurting my ears.
Entitled Mom flips us off and goes back to Entitled Kid, who seems a bit sad. After getting a snack from the lobby, we headed back up to our room and friend told his parents the story. They didn't believe us, which I guess it does sound a bit far-fetched. However, we convinced them that it happened. Now we get to chill back and get ready for round 4, and hopefully we don't see that jerk again. Update. Entitled Kid is back. He's playing against some other kid. He's kind of losing at the moment. I will be watching him along with my friend. Update 2. Entitled Kid tied with the other kid. Friend is still playing. Update 3. Friend won. He's going to the finals and is playing for a lot of money. Update 4. Friend lost round 5, but he got $50. Next we've got the teacher that didn't know what a high five was. Hello, Mr. Reddit and the Re-Army. I know. 3 stories from me in a short time. It is just I am so happy that they are getting read by Mr. Reddit. It makes me happy to know that they are good stories worthy of being read on YouTube. So thanks again, Mr. Reddit, for reading my stories. You are awesome. Normal warnings apply. My brain is evil. Let's start. Anyways, have I got a stupid teacher story for you? This one is a bit shorter than my other stories, but is ridiculous nonetheless. Here's some backstory. When I was in middle school, there was this teacher that was well known for being a jerk. Not the word I really use, but gotta keep it clean. To the kids, she was very strict and would yell at you for the smallest things. She yelled at me once for blocking a door for too long when I was just taking 2 seconds to tell a friend something, and she yelled at me for injuring a student when I only flicked them lightly. The student also overreacted. Anyways, moving on. Let's meet the cast. We've got the jerk teacher, we've got HG, the wonderful banana, and we've got friend. So this happened when I was in 8th grade. I was waiting outside my last class of the day, which was my 8th grade science class. My teacher had not opened the door yet. Well, I had a friend that was in the class opposite mine. The doors of the room faced one another. My friend had jerk teacher for his 7th science class, and I felt very sorry he had her too. Now, jerk teacher was this stout old lady that looked to be in her 60s or something, and always had the attitude of,
I am the boss, and you're dumb.
Anyways, me and friend were fooling around outside our classes while I was waiting for my teacher to open up the door. I don't really remember what me and friend were doing, but at one point, we high-fived one another. This is what took place. Just as I high-fived my friend, jerk teacher walks up and asks me with a straight face,
Why'd you hit him?
I am very confused and caught off guard at this question. Like, how am I meant to answer? So I reply, I didn't hit him. It was a high five, or something like that. This happened years ago, as I am 21 when typing this. Jerk teacher still looked at me with the face of,
You have committed the world's greatest sin.
and had the nerve to tell me,
Don't do it again.
like, what the heck? Really? How do you, a middle school teacher, not know what a high five is? Both me and my friend were confused beyond belief. He just ended up going into his classroom while I stayed outside to wait for mine. There were 2 girls also waiting outside as they were in my class too. They asked me, "You just high-fived him, right?" To which I said, yes. They just rolled their eyes. I swear, I'm not making this up. It is too stupid to make up. I know this is short, but that's really all there was to it. Thanks for reading. Sub to Mr. Reddit. He is awesome, so do it. And our final story of the day. Entitled Grandmother Does Not Understand BBFC Rules or Math. Hey there, Mr. Reddit. I have spent the last year and a bit providing admin to the school system, and your videos have been keeping me amused during the summer holidays. I'm multilingual, but British English is my mother tongue. I'll try to explain anything relevant, but if I miss anything that isn't understood by other Anglophone regions, I do apologize. I was torn between this story and one involving an entitled new mother, but I'll see how this one goes. This was all the way back in 2010. I was working my first job as a cinema usheress. The year is relevant to the story, as well as being easy to remember. Now, a few things I need to explain before I get to the meat of the story. For reasons unknown to me, Fred the movie was in the cinema in the UK. It was direct to video in the States, and the staff who had seen portions of it during the piracy checks were in unison about it being terrible, and was rated 12A by the British Board of Film Classification, BBFC, which meant that it was ill-advised for kids under 12 without someone over 18. Unlike the US, in the UK, 12 is the only certificate where an accompanying adult rule applies. Cinemas have to get special licenses from the local authority to show films to the public, and one of the terms in ours was to enforce these certifications. At the time, breaking this and being caught led to a £1,000 fine and or up to 3 months behind bars. After an incident at another branch where kids were sent in and not checked once, the higher-ups really clamped down. With that done, here is the cast. We've got me, then lost soul trying to find the way forward. We've got the entitled grandmother. We've got SG, one of the 2 girls with entitled granny. And we've got the manager on duty. I'm working the concessions counter when entitled grandma comes along with SG and another girl who says nothing through the whole thing. Entitled grandma.
2 child tickets for Fred, please.
The chain I was working for has kid tickets going up to 12 and teen tickets for 13 to 18, so I turned to the girls. Could you tell me your date of birth, please? SG in that voice good kids have.
1999.
Remember, this was 2010. She was 11 according to her. I'm sorry, ma'am, but this film is rated 12A. They cannot go to the film by themselves.
But they're 12.
She just said she was born in 99. It's 2010. She can't be older than 11 with those facts.
She started high school this year. Of course she's 12.
High school is not the typical British term, but our area had a company that brought employees from ARMS in the US, so I was used to this terminology. Ma'am, I started secondary school when I was 11 and didn't turn 12 until the following July. The next line sticks with me verbatim to this day.
I'm a teacher. How dare you contradict me?
It took all I had not to just laugh in her face at that. To any Potterheads out there, my mother teaches math at the level equivalent to the Newt tests. I'm sorry, but unless you have a photo ID stating that she's 12, I'll have to take her word and assume she's 11. You're more than welcome to look for a film that is a U or PG certificate, or go in with them to see the film.
I want to see your manager.
I fetch the manager, who moves entitled Granny and the kids to another till, so I can serve customers who were waiting while this all unfolded. As I was working through the customers, I wind up having to go to the same popcorn hopper as my manager, who was preparing a kid tray for entitled Granny. She didn't look at me, but she was determined to have the last word.
You need to teach your staff how to talk to their customers. The customer is always right.
Manager, not missing a beat.
Unfortunately, ma'am, that's not always true.
I got my popcorn and was gone before I got to hear her reply. But while I was nearby, she had successfully been shut up. It's pretty mild compared to some entitled parent stories you've got, but I spent quite some time working for the cinema, and I have more stories of the parents lying about their kids' ages than the kids themselves. The year made this one feel especially dumb. Also, if anyone is interested, yes, I did tell my mother this story. She answered with one line. She can't have paid much attention to her pupils' dates of birth. Entitled American Mom underestimates the lack of dams British people give during a heat wave. Hey, Mr. Reddit, I've got a good one for you that happened 3 weeks ago. Strap in, prepare your rees, and enjoy the ride. This year has had awful heat waves. British people don't often get sun, you see, so we enjoy the little we get. The key word is little. When we get too much sun, we aren't exactly in the best of moods. Unlike most of my fellow Britons, I'm not able to register heat. By that, I mean I can walk around in 35-degree heat with an Eskimo coat, a jumper under that, and thick woolly pajamas under that without even sweating. Despite the fact I don't feel hot, I still get the heat wave grump most Brits do. I've given up that coat as it was unhealthy for me, but I still wear jumpers. My absolute favorite is a black one with a white Decepticon emblem on the front. All hail Lord Megatronus of Tarn, our one true lord and master. And this is important for the tale. I was in the store shopping for junk food, like I did before today. I bought 5 different packets of 1-pound bags of crisps, a pack of 6 2-liter bottles of Dr. Pepper, and Kinder chocolate. It's unhealthy, I know, but it's actually a form of self-medication. Some people who have ADHD like myself become very relaxed after eating a lot of sugar, which I call the sugar crash. That day, I went into that store intending to get such a hard crash I'd need a nap. When I got inside, I saw a small kid stare at me as if I was missing half my face like Gus. Only watched Breaking Bad for John Delancey, not apologizing. I ignored him and went through to the sweets. He walked up to me in a style that had impressed penguins and just stood there. I have autism, so social normalities are as elusive as the unicorn to me. Basically, I wasn't bothered that I was stared at. When most of the people in your town chase the purple dragon, you'd become numb to staring.
What's that?
He said in the most nasally and irritating way possible. I ignored him again. So he must have assumed I was listening because he kept opening that hole that made noise.
What's on your shirt?
It's a jumper, I growled out, picking up a bag of sour Skittles.
That's from Transformers.
I know.
But you're a girl.
I was a little surprised he noticed. Most people think I'm a boy because of my name, voice, and face. My hair is also short and dyed dark blue, adding to the confusion of some people and the sheer amusement of me. For noticing, I give the little kid credit. I know, but I like Transformers Prime.
But you're a girl. Transformers is for boys. I want that.
He ordered me as if I were a dog. It was at that moment I realized the kid had an American accent, so the few cares that remained were quickly snuffed. I know most Americans are good tourists, but with everything, everyone only thinks about the minority. Similar to Catholics, most of them are okay, but we only hear about the bad apples. The kid repeated that he wanted my jumper, screaming and literally reeing. I didn't think that they actually make that noise because it was horrible. It was like listening to my cat screeching at another cat, but even more annoying and high-pitched. Me. No. That word stunned the entitled kid. It was like he had never heard that word ever uttered before. Because I didn't want to listen to their annoying noises, I put on my headphones and listened to some Biggie Smalls. I noticed a large man, seriously, he was like 6'8", gave me a small look that meant he too wanted the kid to disappear. It was a beautiful connection of fed upness. Alas, the soothing voice of dear Biggie was not enough to block out the screaming of the boy. I could still hear him demand that I remove my jumper and give it to him, and he was getting angry every time I uttered the recently invented word called no. He resorted to taking a packet of crisps out of my basket and stomping on it to get my attention, so I just picked up another from the aisle. I didn't break it, so I don't have to pay for it, and my lack of reaction to his antics seemed to be near frightening to the kid. Eventually, he seemed to realize that he wasn't dealing with any old human, but one of the most stubborn species to grace this planet, second to cats and politicians. So, he resorted to the only thing he could to try and get what he wanted.
Mommy!
The earth rumbled, the sky quaked. Yes, my fellow Transformers Prime fans, that was a pun. Hell opened its dreadful maw, and from the depths of the frozen food aisle just over from us, the entitled mom made their arrival. Cue in the Attack on Titan soundtrack, because this was a marvel to behold. The woman was a paper cutout of a Karen, everything down to the acrylic nails, the length of the legs, the obesity, and the awful hair. I slowly pulled down my headphones and gripped my basket, realizing far too late that I had found myself in a very true entitled parent standoff. Before she even said a tangible word, she howled the call of the Karens, possibly in the hopes others of her kind would come and help her, like a pride of fashion-blind lions.
Why is my angel crying?
Do bear in mind that this kid has been screeching for nearly 10 minutes and she didn't notice, or more likely didn't care, and only came when he called for her. Truly an example for parents everywhere. Because I told him no. She looked like I had punched her in the face.
How dare you? My little angel can have anything he wants. He's been such a good boy in school.
I somehow doubted that.
Why are you British people so rude? Apologize to my little angel.
No.
Apologize! Now!
No. I will admit, this was starting to become amusing to me. But then she read again, ruining it.
I want the shirt.
He got onto his knees and yanked my jumper. I pried his fingers away and moved, making him fall flat on his face.
Shirt, mommy, shirt.
You will give my baby your shirt for making him so upset.
I just stared blankly at her and walked away. It was too humid, and she was taking up too much cool air with her fish gob. The woman wasn't finished with me, so she thought it would be a good idea to grab my hood and pull me back as hard as possible. I didn't expect this, so I slipped and wound up hitting my head on the floor. I was fine, but I would get a bump in a few hours. It also knocked my iPod, causing Biggie Smalls to turn back on. Obviously, I wasn't very happy with this, so I glared at her as she screamed for a manager or whatever. Earlier, I mentioned I come in here every 3 days or so, meaning the staff are very familiar with me. They're like friends, really. So the manager walked over and saw me on the floor. I got myself up and shot a very nasty glare at the Karen. Manager. Kosa, why were you on the floor? She asked, obviously concerned for me. Because I didn't even get to finish a word before the entitled mom did an Olympic dive into the conversation.
This horrible boy stole my baby's shirt and assaulted me. He must be part of some gang with that horrible music in their headphones.
When I say everyone who was nearby stopped what they were doing to stare at this woman, I mean it. Do these people realize how stupid they sound when they say these things? I was confident that most of the people here who knew about Reddit were realizing that these humans actually exist. In no way did I assault you or your Darwin Award crotch crab, and this jumper belongs to me. I didn't yell because when you talk calmly, people are more likely to listen to you. And if you want to really anger someone, don't say anything at all.
She's lying.
The man from earlier.
I've been standing right here since this started.
She looked at him as if he had just materialized out of thin air.
Woman, it is too hot for this. Leave.
Not until she apologizes.
I want the shirt. I want the shirt.
He chanted as if it would magically make the jumper vanish from me and appear to him. Manager. Miss, I know this young lady. I know this is her shirt. I know that she's too lazy for a gang. Leave the store after you've paid for the crisps your son spread all over the floor.
No, it's his fault that...
Oh, by the one eye of Shockwave, cease your foolery already. I'll pay for the crisps if it will make you go away, you broccoli panda. Entitled Mom looked at the manager, the man, and the other people who were just watching the show. She found no help. She picked up her crying brat and hurried out of the store, and everyone just casually returned to their business. I paid for those crisps, bought my other stuff, and I slept for a good long 14 hours. Entitled coworker ruins my road trip. Picked the wrong supervisor to mess with. Hello, Mr. Reddit and Re-Army. It's me again, Metaladeath, with a story that does not involve a Karen, but more of getting even. English is my first language, and I am on PC. Backstory. So, I was a security guard supervisor for an auto manufacturing plant in Canada a year ago. My brother Chris was one of my employees and the most reliable guard, as well as another guard. We'll call him Awesome Guard. However, with an awesome team, there is one guard that is so entitled that he loses his head if he doesn't get his own way, and we will call him Entitled Guard, a 74-year-old male who thinks he's hot crap, who I was tired of his crap. So I took 4 days off so I could take my girlfriend to Niagara Falls for a couple nights and left a reminder to the guards that I will not be available to cover shifts and that if anyone calls in to work for a non-legitimate reason, that serious action will be taken. I'm on the last day of my trip while my girlfriend and I are enjoying the sights and all was going smoothly until I get a call from Chris. Cast. We've got Chris, my brother and guard. We've got me, and we've got the entitled coworker. Hey, Chris, what is it? Entitled guard called in to work because he didn't feel like coming in and said if you did not accept that, then he will quit. You're kidding me. I'll make a few calls and take care of this. Okay. Chris hangs up. I proceed to phone entitled guard and get his side of the story. Entitled guard, explain to me why you are not coming into your scheduled shift. Entitled guard. I don't feel like going in this evening. What will you do about it? You know what? I'm getting sick and tired of your entitlement. Remember who you're on the phone with, you jerk. The person that not only is your supervisor, but also who writes your schedule. And you also failed to notice the reminder I left. I read that. Good. So you are aware that I'll have to end my trip early and drive back, get sleep, and that I'm taking over your shift. Well, I greatly appreciate that. I cut him off. You shouldn't be grateful. See me in my office Monday morning. Sounds good. Oh, it won't sound good. I call Chris and Awesome Guard, who agreed to relieve Chris, while I come in at 2 a.m., and Awesome Guard agreed to work the weekend shifts to give me a few days off. And now for my revenge. Entitled Guard comes in for the meeting, and I proceed to not only write him up for failure to arrive for duty without a legitimate reason, and with permission from my boss, suspended for 2 weeks. The usual. Entitled guard's wife calls me after a couple hours of him leaving, and I give her the reason he is off for 2 weeks and not for a vacation. And she thanked me for not firing him when I should have, and agreed to make those 2 weeks heck for him. Book clubs, chores, and not as much time to relax, and mostly running around with her. Needless to say, he was very happy to return to work and picked up a few more shifts and was not as entitled as he used to be. Next we've got entitled mom and daughter tries to steal family dog. Daughter almost gets bit in the face. This story happened a couple months ago. My parents were out of town and I was house sitting for them. It was a lovely Saturday morning and the weather was perfect, so I decided to take the dog for a walk. The dog, let's name her Luna, was a rescued miniature poodle found by my uncle after the previous owner left her outside for long periods of time, even in harsh weather, with hopes that she would run off, but she never left. Soon, Luna was later passed on to my mom. I also should mention that it's clear that when we got Luna, that she had abandonment issues. Despite this, Luna really bonded to my family, especially me, my sister, and my mom. I also should mention that Luna is very smart, well-mannered, protective, and especially loyal. Me and my mom could let her off her leash and walk around the park, and Luna would always stay within 4 feet of us at all times and never would let us out of her sight. Luna is one of the best dogs our family has had the pleasure of owning. So, on to the story. The cast. We've got me, OP. We've got entitled mom, the Karen. And we've got the park officers. As I mentioned before, I was in a local park walking Luna. It was a beautiful morning outside, and the park wasn't very crowded yet. About 3/4 the way through our walk, I noticed a park officer make his way towards us. He stopped right in front of us and got off his bike. Officer.
Excuse me, sir. Is that your dog?
Why, yes it is, sir. Is everything okay?
Well, I got a report of a black guy walking a stolen poodle in the park, so I was just doing some investigation.
Well, I can assure you this dog is definitely not stolen. Watch this. I hand the officer the leash and slowly start to walk away. Luna started to whimper loudly as I get further away and starts to pull at the leash towards me. Soon, the officer lets go of the leash and Luna makes a beeline for me. The officer acknowledges that this is in fact my dog and gets back on his bike and tells me to have a good day. As we get to the parking lot to get in my car and go home, notice in the corner of my eye a minivan not too far away from my car opened its doors and out comes entitled mom and her daughter. Both are stomping towards me. I stop and turn to face both of them.
That's not your dog, and you know it.
Ma'am, this is my family's dog. She's been in our family for years.
Bullcrap. Why else would a black man be seen walking around a poodle?
Because it's my dog, you crazy lady. During this exchange, the daughter of entitled mom kneels down in front of Luna. Being as well-mannered as she is, Luna lets the daughter pet her. Entitled mom holding out her hand.
Give us the poodle so we can find the real owners, or I'll report you to the police.
Leave me alone, you crazy lady.
Last chance. Give us the poodle.
At this point, I've had enough and decide to walk away. As I'm turning my back, the daughter unhooks Luna's leash from her harness, picks up the dog, and starts to jog towards the minivan. This causes Luna to whimper loudly. I proceed to go after her, but entitled mom blocks my way. I brush entitled mom aside, which caused her to pull on my shirt in an attempt to stop me. As the daughter is getting closer to the minivan, I see the usually sweet Luna turn into an absolute demon. She starts to thrash about in the daughter's arms and then proceeds to try and bite her face, barely missing by an inch. All this caused her daughter to scream and drop Luna, who proceeded to make a beeline for me. Entitled Mom lets go of me and ran to her daughter to see if she was okay. At this point, I decide to waste no time and open my car door and tell Luna up, which she jumps in and sits in the passenger seat. I hop in my driver's seat, immediately start the car and drive away. In the rearview mirror, I see Entitled Mom trying to chase after my car on foot, but she's way too slow to keep up. On the way home, I pet Luna on the head and tell her, "Good girl." I told my mom about the incident, and she thanked me for keeping her fur baby safe. Next, we've got Entitled Mother-in-Law Gets Catfished and Disappears to the Airport. Hey, Mr. Reddit. My wife and I really enjoy watching and listening to your vids, and during one of them, I asked her, "Wow, your mom is entitled, huh?" This prompted a whole lot of memories to come back to me, with this story being the most impactful. Just for the disclaimers, English is my first language, though I'm on mobile, so apologies if there are any grammar errors. Also, this story happened a few years ago, so dialogue is a bit fuzzy, but I will get the main points out there. So, a bit of backstory. My mother-in-law is the kind of person who expects everything to be placed in front of her on a silver plate, arguing left and right until she gets her way. She also prioritizes herself over anyone else, which is the main focus of this story. So, here's the cast. We've got me, of course, my wife, my entitled mother-in-law, and my two sister-in-laws. Now, on to the story. My mother-in-law has been having difficulties finding boyfriends, always feeling lonely. One guy she found seemed all right, but it was online. He sent her flowers and a few things here and there, but always demanded money. This was fishy, no pun intended, so my wife and I looked into it. Sure enough, it sounded like she was being catfished. So one day while I was at work, my wife, mother-in-law, and sister-in-laws all had to go to the airport to meet this guy. However, he never showed up. He did, apparently, insist he was stuck in customs. Our airport didn't have customs since it wasn't international and needed money to get out. Mother-in-law repeatedly told him she had no money, so my wife finally convinced her to stop talking to him and go home. However, this was not the end. I got home and my wife explained everything. I was kinda shocked, but expected that from mother-in-law. So we went about our evening and went to sleep. Until about 3 a.m., sister-in-law 1 comes in, bawling her eyes out. Sister-in-law 1. "Mommy's not here." She's very much a mama's girl. My wife and I promptly went downstairs, and sure enough, she was gone. Usually she would say where she was going, but this time, no. So all 4 of us, sister-in-law 2 was down there as well, started to mass text her since she wasn't answering any calls. Finally, mother-in-law responded to one of us, I don't remember who, and told us she was at the airport again. Now, this might not be a big deal, but this is where that priority thing comes in. She went alone to an airport and walked half a mile to it in the dark, in a downtown area. We did everything we could to convince her to come back, after stating many times that she was being catfished. She ignored the pleas, saying things such as, "He has to be here," or "I'm not leaving without seeing him." Then I finally snapped. Knowing how she has been treating my wife and her sisters, especially when they were younger, I finally fought back. This is how the conversation went. Me. "Mom, why haven't you left?" "I'm still trying to find customs. Leave me alone." "There is no customs. You know that. You were here earlier and didn't find it. Your daughters are worried sick and want you back home.
What's the big deal?
What's the big deal? You went alone to an airport to find a guy who doesn't exist. And you didn't tell anyone. It's not like you went to Walmart.
Then treat it like I went to Walmart.
At this point, I knew she wasn't gonna listen to us, so I wanted to sting her hard. You know what? I'll say it again. You're a horrible mother. Your daughters are scared because they think you won't come back in any shape or form. You hear their pleas, yet you still do what you want, regardless of what others think. I'm tired of talking to you now. If you won't listen to me, then there's no point talking.
How dare you say that? I'm a perfectly good mother.
I took a breath and simply sent a link to her of an article I was reading about what romance scamming is and went to bed. That morning, I woke up and remembered hearing the front door closing, showing that she came back. I went downstairs and saw her casually talking to sister-in-law 1 and 2. She then looked up and started tearing up. I think I finally got through to her. Sorry if this was a bit long and not a typical entitled parent. I just viewed it that her hardcore, self-centered attitude towards things made her feel like she can do whatever she wanted and not get any backlash. Entitled mom can't fathom why a disabled kid gets priority boarding. Another day, another post about people being jerks about my disability. I get it, I guess. I'm 16 and look relatively healthy until I pass out or fall down a flight of stairs or can't breathe and end up in the ICU. Anyways, I was going back to school yesterday via plane. I was alone for this particular flight. A short summary of me. I'm 16 and have enough health issues that give me the perks of being disabled that entitled people really want. I made it through the airport so far. Air travel can be a hassle for me depending on which airport and which TSA agent I have, but it was going relatively smoothly. I have a carry-on backpack with my phone and stuff and an entire suitcase that is marked with medical equipment. Please handle with care. Inside that, I have my dozens of meds, nebulizer, neb vials, oxygen tubing, etc., etc. Usually that suitcase and its little tag keep me from getting jerked around by the general public, but apparently not today. I'm waiting for my flight, which is scheduled to start boarding in 25 minutes exactly. This is usually when I go up to the counter and state my need for priority boarding. I answer the relevant questions, provide documentation if asked, and voila, I get a new boarding pass that gives me extra time and allows me to sit in the bulkhead seat. I'm talking with the agent and she's really sweet. So after she wraps everything up for me, we chat for a second and I talk about how crazy busy it is. I also work in customer service, so I can empathize. Entitled mom is standing behind me, waiting to talk to the agent. I step aside and go over to wait for my flight. I sit down on the ground and pull out my laptop to work on my personal writing. I am wearing earbuds, but I can kind of feel that weird sensation where someone is staring at you. So I take them out and look up to see entitled mom complaining and moaning to the agent at the counter about me getting priority boarding. Entitled mom is shooting dagger glares at me. I infer that she is mad about my priority boarding and therefore must be angry at how a seemingly healthy kid got to board before her and her little spawn. I now start to pay attention to the conversation. We've got me, disabled teenager who gives no hoots. We've got entitled mom. We've got Spawn, her 9-year-old son. We've got CL, agent at the counter.
Excuse me, but why does this teenager get to board before us?
I'm sorry, but that information is private.
It's not fair. She's just a liar and a freeloader. She doesn't need to board early.
This young lady has a very valid reason and is protected by airline policy. What exactly is your reasoning for requesting priority boarding?
My son right here is very young and needs help adjusting to the plane. you allow parents and kids extra time to board?
Ma'am, your son is 9 years old. That policy does not apply to him anymore.
What the heck? I want to speak to your manager.
I step in to intervene because I work in customer service and have dealt with many Karens. It's easier to have another person on your side. Excuse me, ma'am. I am allowed early boarding due to federal law and airline policy. Please do not take it out on the agent right here. If you have an issue with my boarding, you can speak to me instead.
Exactly. Why can you board early? You don't meet any of the policies. Grow up and take some responsibility.
I don't know where the heck she got that from. Being I am 16, traveling across the country alone with a disability, I'm pretty darn responsible. I am disabled. I've got plenty more reasons to board early than you and your kid. If you so like, I will board normally and be unable to inform the flight crew of my disability and proper procedure to help me when I am in distress, which means we might have to make an emergency landing. I'm sure you'll like that because it will delay your arrival by a day. Would you like me to do so? I'm standing there, looking like I give no hoots, per usual, and have my award-winning face. Entitled Mom looks taken aback and is an epitome of the shocked Pikachu meme.
But you aren't old. You can't be disabled if you aren't old.
Well, for your information, I am going back to school a few days early so that I can spend 3 days in the hospital seeing a variety of specialists, having a battery of tests, and possibly having a feeding tube placed. Disability does not discriminate based on age. Now, if you will excuse me, I'm going to sit back down before I pass out. That shut Entitled Mom up, and she slunk back to her row of chairs to sit and wait for her boarding zone to be called. I waited a few minutes, and then got up to be at the very front of the priority boarding line. I enjoyed a peaceful flight, and enjoyed seeing Karen be stuck in the back of the plane waiting to deplane while I was the first one off. Next we've got Entitled Student versus Justified Entitled Teacher. Hi there, Mr. Reddit. I've been watching you for a few weeks now, and it reminded me of a personal experience of an entitled student versus a justified entitled teacher. I am a native English-speaking person, and I am not on mobile, so if there are any spelling mistakes, it is all my fault. I give you full permission to use my story for a video. Now, on to our characters. We have Entitled Student, our main character. We've got Miss Karen. She's our entitled teacher. Her actions were justified in this story. We've got Miss Entitlement, another entitled teacher who is partially to blame for this. We've got Innocent Heckler 1, who provoked Entitled Student. We've got Guest Teacher. This took place in 11th grade and was the perfect storm of entitledness from all sides. This started with Entitled Teacher, Miss E. She assigned a group project and wanted it completed by the end of the school week. Keep in mind, she assigned it on a Wednesday, did not let us work on it in her class to finish it. Our main character, Entitled Student, and his entitled partners waited until the very last day and worked on their project throughout the day. This leads us to our entitled interaction. We were in Miss Karen's class, 2 hours before Miss E's class, and we had a guest teacher. Miss Karen brought him in to explore the world of poetry with us and even have a chance to publish our compositions, but that's for another story time. It was crunch for Entitled Student and his entitled partners. The four had gathered around a table in the back of the room, spread out their poster board, and went to work. While the rest of the class was practicing their rhymes, Team Entitled was busy gluing pictures down and rehearsing their lines for their presentation. It's super obvious and distracting. We were all wondering why Miss Karen didn't stop them. Guest teacher told us he'd be right back as he needed to go to his car to get some additional supplies, and Miss Karen told him that was okay and that she'd walk around the room to check everyone's progress. As soon as guest teacher left, Team Entitled got even louder. You could hear everything from the snipping of scissors to Entitled Student 2 practicing her introduction. Miss Karen made her rounds, and when she got to the back of the class and saw the chaos, she looked at them, put her hand on her hip, and said, "What on earth are you doing?" Entitled Partner 2.
We were trying.
Entitled Student interrupts.
We need to finish this project, Miss Karen.
Miss Karen. No, absolutely not. Not in my classroom.
We need to finish this now, or else we'll fail.
First of all, we have guest teacher, and that's rude. Secondly, I am not going to let you work on another teacher's assignment in my class. That is your problem, not mine. Entitled Partner 1.
It's okay, entitled student. We can work on it later.
While packing their supplies away. Entitled Student.
I told you, if we do not finish this project, we will fail. We need to finish this right now, and clearly guest teacher has left.
Miss Karen. If you and entitled partners weren't so involved in this project, you'd know that guest teacher is coming right back. Now I said it once, and I'm not going to say it again. Get your poem book out and practice your rhymes. Miss Karen walked back to her desk as Entitled Partner 2 had packed everything away by this point. Entitled Student was furious, his face becoming cherry red. He stood up, slammed his chair in, and began to stomp to his assigned seat while cursing under his breath. Miss Karen. What was that? Speak up. Entitled Student ignored Miss Karen and continued trudging back to his seat. Innocent Heckler 1. What's wrong, Entitled Student? Entitled Student.
Fool, please, I don't need your comment.
Entitled Partner 3. Bro, calm down. It's not that serious. We can work on it later.
Shut up! I'm trying to help you out.
The rest of his team just watched, and the class began first to chuckle, then laugh at the scene, and this further enraged Entitled Student. However, he did get back to his seat, but did not pull out his rhyme book to do the assignment. At this point, guest teacher comes back and walks around the class, answering questions and checking on us. He finally gets to Entitled Student. Guest teacher. I need you to write something, son. Just write how you feel.
I'm not in the mood.
Miss Karen. Go to the office, right now.
Good. I didn't want to be in here anyway.
Entitled Student walked out of the room, slamming the door behind him. Miss Karen apologized profusely to the now confused guest teacher, and we continued with the lesson. You'd think this is the end, but as the bell rang and we left to go to the next class, Entitled Student was standing right beside the door, glaring at each of us individually as we walked out. He didn't say anything, but his look still stays with me to this day. Entitled Student and Miss Karen never got along after this encounter. Next we've got Entitled Motorist Meets Karma. Hello, Mr. Reddit. Thanks for reading all my posts so far. It's really awesome to hear them read, and I hope you enjoy this one. Those who read my posts will be happy to hear that this entitled person's story doesn't include the hotel I work at. Not all my entitled encounters happen at work. This is a short little tale that includes an entitled motorist and some delicious pro-revenge. There is no dialogue in this story, so I apologize, but enough rambling. It's time to get this story rolling. So this happened several years ago, when my kids were 2 and 4. We were driving into town to take the kids to go see a movie. I forget which one. The movie theater is several towns away from us. It's a 25-mile drive with a few small towns in between, so you have to slow down once in a while. So I was driving through one of these towns at a brisk 35 miles per hour. At this point, I should clarify, I drive the speed limit almost exclusively, especially when my kids are in the car. I was talking with my wife about the latest Kingdom Hearts game, Dream Drop Distance 3D, wondering when Kingdom Hearts 3 would be released. This should give you an indication on how long ago it was, when I noticed a red car driven by an entitled motorist rolling up behind us like we were standing still. I pay him no mind and continue driving along at the posted speed limit of 35 and continue my conversation. I see entitled motorist getting increasingly frustrated in the rearview mirror. But I am in a small town. I am not speeding up. Not with my kids in the car. Tough luck, buddy. All of a sudden, entitled motorist screams past us at over 60 miles per hour in a no passing zone, I might add. He narrowly missed an incoming car. I'm irritated and start complaining how impatient people can be when suddenly, without warning, entitled motorist slams on his brakes right in front of us. I have ADD, attention deficit disorder, and have learned to use it to my advantage, meaning I notice my surroundings and am always hyper alert and can react on a moment's notice. I remember being thankful of this fact because my ADD gave me the quick reaction I needed to slam on my brakes to avoid hitting this jerk. As my van came to a stop, I noticed entitled motorist ranting and raving at me from the driver's seat and waving his arms while flipping me the bird. I start to get out to confront entitled motorist. He just put my kids in danger. I was ready to throw down. But before I even get a foot out the door, he takes off at a fantastic speed that had to be well over 55, squealing his tires as he left. I sit there for a few seconds, red hot and fuming. How dare this jerk put my family in danger? Because I dared to drive the speed limit and it wasn't fast enough for him. But realizing there's nothing I can do, I get back in and make sure my family is okay. My kids were crying, having been startled by the sudden stop, but everyone is fine. We continue our drive to the movies. Now, this wouldn't be a pro-revenge story if that was the end of it, and nowhere near as satisfying. Oh no, this is not the end of the story, kiddies. You see, we continue driving along for about 5 miles or so when we notice police lights in the distance. As we approach, we see the same exact red car that had just harassed us. A state trooper had apparently pulled him over for speeding. This was just too perfect. A wicked smile crept across my face, and my wife took one look at me and knew what I was planning instantly. State trooper was walking back to his car and looked to be about to let entitled motorist go when I pulled over right behind him. Entitled motorist noticed us pulling in and began watching us. I waved state trooper over and I introduced myself, asked him what entitled motorist was pulled over for, speeding, and then told state trooper what entitled motorist had done to us only a few minutes ago. State trooper's face hardened. He thanked us for the information and sent us on our way. As we passed entitled motorist, the look on his face as he recognized me and realized I had just talked to state trooper. It was delicious. As I passed, I couldn't resist giving him the one-finger salute, smiled, and waved by. I'm not sure what happened to him, but as we drove away, I looked in the rear view and could see state trooper putting entitled motorist in handcuffs. And shoutouts to our Regenerals of the day, King Juggernaut, Sergeant Mason, and Fire Ice. Become tomorrow's Regenerals by leaving as many reads as you can in the comments below, and please listen to my playlist every night